Hey, Vinyl Community, Jeff here again. Time for a contest entry. This one I've been hemming and hawing around for a little while. Finally decided to jump on. This is for Keith, Attack from Down Under, celebrating 2 years in the VC, and he is having a competition surrounding phobias and seasons. So there are 4 questions. If you haven't checked out Keith's channel, link below for sure. Jump on the contest and win some fun stuff. Anyway, the first one is a phobia, an album that has a phobia. And I have a couple phobias, of course, but I'm not a big fan of spiders, but I don't really go that route. I chose Skyscraper by David Lee Roth. Now, I've noticed as I've gotten older, my height situation has changed. I never used to be afraid of heights, never was, but I was always kind of afraid of falling. And I don't mind roller coasters, I don't mind thrill rides, I don't mind high things like that for the most part, but I'm always kind of freaked out about people climbing rocks without any, especially if they're free climbing, and there's like, I'm just like, oh, one slip and they're, oh. So that's a phobia, is just, and is some of the craziness of the heights of rock climbing, being on top of rocks to where you could slip off. People who do the parkour and stuff like that from heights without any kind of protection, that really kind of freaks me out. And yeah, I would never want to. I've tried climbing things nowadays to where it's just, I'm tied in and I'm just climbing like a tree. We did this at like a just kind of a fun park thing, and we had to climb the tree and ring the bell, and I got halfway up and my body froze. I'm like, I'm not going any further. And it's weird, it's like not really controllable. I wasn't looking down, I wasn't looking up, I was just kind of, forget it. Enough craziness about me. Anyway, second question is dealing with winter and summer. An album, music that reminds you of winter, makes you think of winter, or that you like to listen to in winter. I went the route of makes me think of. And I'm pulling out a band that I'm sure not a ton of people probably know, but I went this route because he also went this route also with listening to a little more extreme music in the winter. And I went with a death metal too. So Under the Northern Sky by Immortal Souls. Immortal Souls is well, you'll see. They got winter surrounding them. Things like Ice Upon the Night. So yeah, Winterreich. So yeah, they've got winter all in there. This one doesn't have winter as much in there, but this one does, winter metal. So yeah, one of those metal bands with winter all over it. Now when we come to summer, I like him. I love listening to fun party music. All the stuff from the 80s is just roll the windows down and crank up and have fun. But I immediately, for some reason, thought of Summer of Darkness, maybe because of the title, by Demon Hunter. And this is one of the only metalcore type bands that I really enjoy, and some of my favorites, and this one came to mind immediately. Again, title Summer of Darkness, recently brought out to us on vinyl, which was really exciting. Third question is to see a weird soundtrack, and I'm going really weird. Maybe some of you all know of it, some of you don't. Phantom of the Paradise, a movie from the 70s that I saw. It's a Brian De Palma film. It's got Paul Williams in it. You may know him. He's an actor. He went on to do stuff with DC. He appeared in, like, what was it, Flash or Arrow? He did a lot of voiceovers for some of the DC cartoons, but he's a singer from back in the early days, and he wrote music, and he wrote the music and sang a lot of the music for this soundtrack. Now, as a kid, this movie came out in like 74, so I was like 8, and I saw this in the theater probably half a dozen times, which was a lot for an 8-year-old kid to see. I just, for some reason, was enamored with this, loved it, still love it to this day. I bought the Blu-ray with all the additional footage. It's got like a cult following, and they have events surrounding it still. The other day, my wife and I, this literally happened just like about 2 or 3 weeks ago. It came up for something. My wife knows this. She knows that the movie, has heard me talk about it. And for some reason, we mentioned something the other day, and I said, I did make you watch it, right? And she goes, I don't think I've ever seen it. I'm like, are you kidding me? After 39 years of marriage, I've never made you watch Phantom of the Paradise. She goes, I don't think so. And, you know, so I twisted her arm and she says, fine, let's watch it. And then we watched it and she says, that was a really weird movie. I told her it just, for some reason, struck me as a kid and I just fell in love with it. And so I got the soundtrack from Beth over at Miss 80s, and she picked this up at a store. I could never find it around here, and she found a copy in her store, picked it up, and sent it to me years ago as VCLT. Absolutely love it. I've had the CD ever since I could find it, but I never had an actual copy of the vinyl from back in the day. So I picked it up. So there's a really weird soundtrack. If you haven't checked out the movie, go check it out. It's funny. It's kind of a play off of Phantom of the Opera, of course. But, you know, guy gets damaged face, wears a mask, terrorizes the paradise, and causes all kinds of chaos. Fun stuff, fun soundtrack, music all over the place, from the 50 sounding sounds all the way up to like a harder rock sound of the 70s. So it's a fun movie. Now, last question is, talk about your favorite record store. It could be online, could be local. There's, you know, a handful of stores around here, and I like them all for different reasons. There's the one I talk about all the time that I do, Record Store Day. I go there quite often. But what I decided to do, because he wants to see some things that you've bought there, and I've bought so much from so many places. But this sticks out because this was something I just did this week, and I thought, you know, let's talk about this. There's an antique mall here. I've talked about it. Antique malls are hit or miss. You never know. And in this antique mall, it's huge. There has to be 100+ vendors in there. And a lot of them are obnoxiously overpriced. Not all of them, quite a few of them. And there are quite a few that are reasonable, and there are quite a few that are probably just over the edge of being reasonable. There's one particular store in there, though, that is, in my opinion, one of the best. He has a ton of records, and he sells vintage audio equipment. I literally go in there and I listen to him playing music over the sound, over his speakers, over the systems, and I'm like, I need to come in here and get a new record player and you know, get me a new system from him. And just because I'd like to go back to a more analog system with an older setup, but just it sounds so good, and I'm like, I'm probably missing out. But anyway, I go there all the time. It's the first place I hit. He has a section for metal. He has a section, tons of rock. And sometimes I spend a lot of time going through a lot of the stuff. Sometimes I hit a couple key places and leave. This weekend I went and hit the whole thing. I just, you know, it was like a while later, my wife texted me. She said, so where are you? I said, I'm still in the front record store. And she's like, really? And I'm like, yeah, I decided to go ahead and do a more exhaustive search. And I found a few things. Now, these are from this weekend, and then I got a couple things that over the years I've picked up that I thought were pretty key. Status Quo, I picked this up on Saturday. Reasonable price. It's a promo. White. It's a, well, it's not white label, but it does say promo right on the disc. You can't really see it. Promotional copy. It's a compilation from a couple albums that came out. It's a U.S. pressing. There were some import versions of this, but it was kind of like a compilation of a couple albums to get the band promo. They were not as huge in America, but I thought that's really cool. I have very little Status Quo, 1 or 2 albums on vinyl that I thought, well, that ought to be good to add a little kind of a best of there, or not really a best of, it's more of a compilation of a couple of the recent albums at the time, so that's cool. This I was excited to find, again, a band that probably nobody else is going to recognize, but Servant Rockin' Revival. This was the only Servant album I was missing on vinyl that I could never seem to find, and he had it there. It looks brand new, $4, you know, this particular store, the albums range between, you know, $4 and $10 for the most part. It is just, it's on Tunesmith, an old label from Canada. I love almost anything on Tunesmith, so I find it, I buy it on Tunesmith. But Servant, I have everything on vinyl except this album. Could never seem to find it. I even ordered it once online on Discogs. I said, well, while I'm ordering it, I'll save some shipping and I'll order 2 or 3 other albums. And then the guy wrote me back and said, I have everything you want except the Servant. I'm like, that's the thing that I wanted. The others were just thrown in extras, so I canceled the whole order. Have yet to ever find it, and I saw this, and it was just brand new. And there's 2 versions. There's this version and a version that they changed the cover. This is the original. I was glad to get this. It looks pristine, beautiful. Not only did he have this, but he had the album that followed this, and I already had that. It was brand new and pristine too. Same thing, $4. And so I went ahead and bought that, gave that to the singer of my band, because he grew up listening to a lot of the old classic Christian rock of the day, and so he liked that. I also picked him up a Res Band album, brand new, $4, looked beautiful. I already have 2 copies of it, so I picked him up that. So I don't know, somebody dumped off a few things of the classic 70s Christian rock stuff. I was thrilled to pick that up. I couldn't believe I saw this. I'm flipping. I rarely see anything by Brian Haworth out in the wild. We are way out of the metal field now, so we've left that. Brian Haworth, I think he's a UK guitarist, very much in the line of like an Eric Clapton type feel. I think him and Eric have actually done stuff together. He's done stuff with other people, but he's had a wide, a large, history, a large career, starting back in the early 70s. And the albums I have from him are, I think I have this is like his 2nd or 3rd. I have like his 5th and 6th album from like late 70s, early 80s. And that's all I was familiar with. This one's a little earlier on. And it's just, singer-songwriter, guitar-driven. And this also was a promo. I saw the sticker on the back. There's a sticker on the back that says, promotion, not for sale. I'm like, oh, that's cool. But then I got it, and it's actually a white label promo. Unplayed looking. It's got a hole punch in it over here. But other than that, I was like, yeah. And for the price. And like I said, this one particular store, and I'm not showing just stuff from that one store because there are a couple that I've picked up that I've really thrilled about. But that one store, all of his stuff is fairly reasonable. I don't think I've ever seen anything in there too crazy. I picked this up a year or so ago, Metal Revolution by Living Death. I never see this import strange, obscure metal. And the store I bought it from in the antique mall, they don't even have a lot of this stuff. I don't know where they got it from. It was like I'm flipping, and this is like the only thing in there that even close to this. And so, yeah, and I grabbed that. Little more pricey, but, it was still very reasonable. Same thing with this Malmsteen sealed copy of this particular Odyssey album. It was sealed. It's got the hype sticker. I did open it, but didn't take the hype sticker off. And I'm like, the particular vendor that I'm flipping through, they didn't have any real metal. This was like, I'm just like, how did this thing stick out like a sore thumb? It's just like, where'd they get this from? Picked it up, grabbed it, great stuff, thrilled about that. Now, going back to that early place, the place I was talking about earlier on that I go to all the time, this, in my opinion, and this is weird, people are going to say, I don't know why you like that, but in my opinion, this was probably the biggest score that I found there, because I just couldn't believe I found it there. And it is weird. It's the first Adam and the Ants album, and it's a UK pressing from the 70s. It was in pristine condition, and he had it there. I forget how much I paid for it. It was not even $10 probably. It's just a UK pressing. I mean, it's been reissued in America. The track listing was different. Songs were different. Some versions were different, and so I just never thought I'd find one of these without ordering it. And I found this at his store, just randomly flipping through. It wasn't even in a section you would think it would be in. I think it was under like Psych or something. And to this day, I remember the day I found it, I was so tickled. It was just like, I can't believe I found it. One of my favorite albums by Adam and the Ants. Just early punk stuff before, and I love all of his stuff. But if you're not familiar with this album, the band from this album was basically stripped from Adam by the label. They stripped the guys from the band, and they paired them up with a young teenage female singer, and that became Bow Wow Wow. And so the band from this album mostly became Bow Wow Wow, and then Adam started over with Adam and the Ants, and the second album had a totally different lineup and everything. So, but this album to me is it's just one of the best. So yeah, there you go. Great stuff. So yeah, it's weird to say an antique mall is one of my favorite places, because they typically are gouging prices. And this place has some that do and some that don't. And the ones that don't, I tend to find decent stuff at a lot. And so I'm thrilled about that. So there you go. There you go, Keith. There's for your contest. Everybody else, jump on board. Let's have some fun with this, and I'll see you later. Rock on and rock hard.